Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer and I will be doing my molecular Protfolio presentation on Prozac. I will begin my presentation by drawing the skeletal structure of Prozac, and on the side we do have the brand name, the generic name, and the chemical name of Prozac. So in this next slide, we do see the expanded structure formula of Prozac, and we also do see the VSEPR theory of Prozac. And we do see that 5 of the central atoms of Prozac do have a tetrahedral molecular geometry, since they do have 4 electron regions and each region has a connecting atom. And then we do see in the blue that there is trigonal planar molecular geometry, since they only have 3 electron regions and have an atom attaching in each region. And then we do see one bent, which is in the oxygen, highlighted in purple, and more specifically it is a 109.5 bent, since it does have 4 electron regions but only has 2 atoms attaching. And finally, we do see one trigonal pyramidal molecular geometry, which is in the nitrogen, since there are 4 electron regions, but there is only 3 connecting atoms and leaving 1 lone pair. Now, to continue talking about Prozac, we will be talking about the molecular formula of Prozac, which is C17H18F3 and O. And then we find the molar mass, which is when we find the molar mass of each individual atom in Prozac, and then we add it all together to get the molar mass. So you can see I did do that here with the carbon, hydrogen, fluorine, nitrogen, and oxygen. And then I took all the numbers and added them together, and then this gave us the molar mass of Prozac, which is 309.362 grams over moles. Okay, so now we will be talking what is Prozac used for. So the drug Prozac is a medically prescribed antidepressant that is used to help patients with a different range of emotional disorders that can include depression, panic disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, and anxiety. It can also be used to treat bulimia because depression and anxiety are a common side effects of this mental illness. Prozac is a compound that has selective inhibiting serotonin reuptake abilities, which can help increase serotonin levels in a patient. This happens because it blocks the reabsorption of serotonin in neurons, allowing transmission of messages of serotonin to become improved and serotonin to be much more available. Okay, now we'll talk about when you should not take Prozac. So Prozac should not be taken by patients with depression that are younger than 8 years old. It should also not be taken by OCD patients that are younger than 7 years old. And it also should not be taken by patients that are known to have a medical history of hyponatremia, which is low sodium in the blood, because Prozac can decrease sodium levels in the blood, which can lead to vomiting, liver, heart, and kidney problems in the patient. Okay, so now we will talk about significant interactions with other drugs. Prozac is a very common antidepressant that is prescribed to help treat a different number of conditions and disorders, but has serious side effects if mixed with other drugs. Prozac can have significant interactions with opioid painkillers like fentanyl and methadone. So fentanyl and Prozac can cause serotonin syndrome, which is when there is a very high level of serotonin that accumulate in the body. Serotonin syndrome can cause side effects that can include confusion, increased heart rate, vomiting, shaking, and loss of balance. Then methadone and Prozac can cause side effects that can include heart palpitations, fainting, and shortness of breath. Now, here's something interesting about Prozac. Prozac was the first drug to have selective inhibiting serotonin reuptake and was a very popular drug to treat depression. It did have a voluntary recall in 2018 due to abnormal test results that caused Prozac to not meet the standards of the Food and Drug Administration due to a certain ingredient that was being integrated into the drug. This recall didn't necessarily pull all Prozac off the shelves, but just a specific lot that was shipped between the dates of March 24, 2016 to January 4, 2018. This batch was voluntary recall because the use of this batch was very unlikely to have any health consequences. So before I continue to the next slide, I just want to talk about hydrogen bonding with water. So for a hydrogen bond to interact with water, we need to look for a hydrogen that is attached to electronegative atoms like fluorine, carbon, or nitrogen. And if this hydrogen is attached to one of these electronegative atoms, it could then bond with water. As for the most electronegative atoms like nitrogen, carbon, and fluorine, they can automatically attach to water molecules, making a hydrogen bond. So here in this example, we can see that there is some hydrogen bonding, and in the purple we see the hydrogen bonding with water and water acting as a donor, as a H bond donor, and in the yellow we can see that there is a H bond acceptor. So why did I talk about hydrogen bonding? I talked about hydrogen bonding to see the way that water would react with Prozac and to see if there would be any hydrogen bonding between the two. And as we can see, there is hydrogen bonding with Prozac since it does have fluorine, oxygen, and nitrogen. There are mostly H bond donors, but there is one H bond acceptor in the Prozac atom. Okay, now to continue with the Prozac molecule, we also do see polarity in the Prozac molecule as shown here and is highlighted with yellow. And I would predict that it would be soluble in water, but when I did my research, it actually said Prozac is insoluble to water. But when I further investigated, it said that Prozac, when combined with HCl, it does become soluble in water. So originally Prozac as the pure drug itself would not be soluble in water, but we do manipulate it with HCl to make it a soluble salt, therefore making the Prozac that we do take as medication now. So now we will be going to the solution calculation portion of the molecular portfolio. So in this situation, we are prepping 50.0 milliliters of 2.03 times 10 raised to the negative 2 m solution of Prozac. So since we know the molarity and volume of this solution, we would use the formula for molarity, and molarity is moles over liters. So we would have to move this around to find moles, which would be moles equals molarity times liters. And since this formula uses liters, we would convert milliliters to liters, which we would do 50.0 milliliters times 1 liter over 1,000 milliliters, which does equal to 0.0500 liters. Now with all those numbers, we plug it back in. So moles equals 0.0500 liters times 2.30 times 10 raised to the negative 2 moles over liters. So then this does cancel out the liters and we are left with moles, which would give us 1.15 times 10 raised to the negative 3. Finally, we take these moles and multiply it by the grams of Prozac in 1 mole of Prozac. and this would give us the amount of grams of Prozac needed to make the solution. And this would look like 1.15 times 10 raised to the negative 3 moles times 309.362 grams of Prozac over 1 mole Prozac, which would give us 0.356 grams of Prozac that would be needed for this solution. Okay, so now we are finally to the end of this presentation where I will show you the solution calculation of how many milligrams of Prozac are contained in a 2.0 milliliters of 3% weight over volume solution of Prozac. So we do know the volume and the percentage. So with this, we would use the formula of weight over volume percentage, and it is equal to moles of solute over volume of solution times 100. So we would manipulate this formula to get M solute equals W over V multiplied by volume of solution over 100. And once we plug in what is given to us, we do find that it is 0.060 grams, but this is not the final answer since it is asking for milligrams. So to find milligrams, we would use a conversion, and this conversion would be 0.060 grams times 1,000 milligrams over 1 gram, which would give us 60 milligrams of Prozac. So there would be 60 milligrams of Prozac that would be contained in 2.0 milliliters of a 3% solution of Prozac. So I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and this was a good semester.